Joining us right now on the phone is the man who exposed the Bigfoot hoax, Steve Kulls, private investigator and executive director of Squatchdetective.com.
The numbers of sightings, even if you take 99% of them and put them in the trash can, you turn around, you still have that 1% that can't be explained. Well, we need to explain it.
And then this thing walks across the road, makes a turn towards us. All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
The whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us.
I still see that damn thing to this day. It wasn't 20 feet from me.
You could see it standing from the moonlight in the tree line.
I was just scanning right to left, and it reminded me of like a gorilla.
Get somebody out here. Son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, June 4th, 2023. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, man with the plan, and the busted water pipe, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we are having so much fun in Kentucky repairing water pipes. It's like a never-ending job. And that's just part of it, you know. It's some of the things. You have a house and you have the water lines disconnected, and you go through and put the antifreeze in all the drains and the sinks and all that crap, and you think, well, when I have the water reconnected, everything will be fine.
Nope.
Well, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Yep. Exactly. Never it works
but
the way
how
it
is
should.
Steve doing, man? I hope you're not having water line troubles.
Can't have a water line problem if I don't have a water line. Yes, I realized that they never connected the pipe from the main to the outside spigot. So, there's going to be some phone calls and letters fired as soon as I get back.
Yeah, we definitely got to have that outside water hydrant there, or water faucet, so you can wash the Bronco, dude. You keep that dude tip top.
Well, I have a subscription to the local car wash. They have car washes all over, so I just run through it anytime. So,
as my wife would say, kikiet. That means in Thai, lazy.
well, you have to see the lawn I have to mow, and I have a push mower. So.
Oh yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
So
can't be pushing them blondes. Got to be riding.
Yes, sir. We got a lot of business to take care of today. Lots of business. As everybody can see, our guest tonight is Professor Darby Orcutt, who's downstairs over there. And but we got to tend to some business here first. First things first. First thing we do is we thank all our new members to our subscription service. And Wade Wood, Reverend, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks became channel sponsors this week. Brian and Chewy go hiking channel patron. And I spelled that really well, didn't I? Paytorns. There's my dyslexia in action today.
That's all right.
Well, you know, like they say, when you have when you have dyslexia, life gives you melons. And channel supporters, Chance Lambert and Joe from the Bigfoot Atheist Inquiry.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Everybody.
We all appreciate it. So, going very well. Anyway, we'll get back to this fun stuff. But anyway, it's time for our roll call. And
the chat room seems to be hot.
hey, and guess who just joined as well? If I can get this to pop up, hang on. I'll have to go to my special. There we go.
Yeah. It's hard for me to keep up, you guys, because there's so many things. I have to look over here, then look over there. It looks like during the show I'm watching a ping pong match, but I'm actually checking everybody out, watching the...
Yeah, the channel just went kabloomo, but let's see if we can get this to show it. And for some reason, oh, there we are.
Brian, Brian.
There we go. And our good friend Don
Fuller.
Fuller becomes a new member. Thank you.
Bud. And with Brian, I hope Chewy's doing better, bud. I hope he's doing better now. Chewy had an incident with an automobile, I think, recently.
Yes, and no, not with the. He had a porcupine incident.
Porcupine incident. Okay, well
But,
that's better.
Chewy is doing much better, I hear. So
those porcupines can be rough. I would
not fun at all.
Right.
Let's do the roll call. Let's see. Got to go all the way back up here. So the first one in was Ammon Chris.
Ammon Chris, welcome.
Relic Hominin, who's not going to be here, but he swung by because he's from the UK. Said catch the recording on Monday.
Oh, that's great, man.
Of course, you, man. Brian and Chewy go hiking. Another new member of the group.
Thanks again, Brian.
Lance Windsor.
Lance.
Bigfoot and more. Dave Wilbanks. Who will be our surprise guest at 10 o'clock. Grasshopper, Uncle Bones 2, Daniel Weeks, Mike Ann over at Tactical Bigfoot Research.
Mike, what's going on, man?
Eyes in the Woods, Uncle Bones 2 is in the house. Jay Fritz, hello Jay. Brent, the tall ones in the house. Don Fuller, of course, just became a member.
Yeah.
Tom Connolly, Arthur Watch. Daniel Weeks, we already said him, didn't we? Little Kirai is passing through. I love that. Sharon in the house. Sandra Piper. Oh, another one of our members, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Oh, he's eating steak dinner. I guess that's better than mixed meatloaf.
Wow. Yeah, that's great, man. Congratulations.
Angel Nolan, DM Zabo in the house.
Angel?
I think we got it. No, Joe Dryden's in the house. Yeah.
Joe. Joe out.
Brian McMahon.
Brian, good to see you. Jen.
Jen is in the house.
Kevin Harder, I don't know if you called
Kevin Harder's in there, yep. Another professor. Got the attack of the professors tonight.
Well, good. The more the merrier.
That's right. And I think that's it.
Okay, I'm still scrolling. I guess that's everybody.
I think that's everybody that's talking anyway.
Yeah. And, hello to all the lurkers.
Yes, the lurkers out there that are watching but not seeing.
Yeah, we appreciate you too. If you don't want to type in the chat, that's fine. I do that too sometimes.
Yep, and I want to address a comment that was left, and I let it stand. And that was released today. Some character out there on YouTube I've never heard of, never been in the chat here. Oh, Smedley Do-Right is lurking too.
Smedley. That's Bigfoot Rangers. Wow.
Well, thank you. Oh, this is not how to become a member. Sorry about that, Mike. Mike, my good friend Mike Waldy, who I met finally in person a couple of years ago down at the Texas Bigfoot Conference.
Yeah.
And man, he's got the super boat and he had the super truck. I know he's been refitting a new one. So, but anyway, getting back to that comment, he was like, "Well, do you always delete comments with people that disagree with you?" And I point blank told him, I said, "No, I delete the comments that are basically insulting, that use profanity, or are downright trollistic." So if you're responding to somebody that stated that they've made a comment and it never showed up, perhaps they broke the rule. And I think what I said was, which is a real simple rule. If you plan on coming to my house and pooping on the floor, I'm not going to let you in.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And
the adult, don't be trollish or whatever.
And I was like, oh, by the way, Mike Patterson / Sasquatch Ontario has been banned for previous infractions. So I don't know if he's listening to what's his name saying in somewhere on social media that, but that's it. If you want to disagree, you can disagree. Just do it respectfully.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Daniel, Daniel said he commented on Mike Patterson's channel as we left in 6 links, various replies, and put the links to 6 links of various shows, one of Brent's shows. I can understand that, deleting them. I got that.
If somebody's calling you names in the comments or something or other, that should be deleted.
Yeah, but I understand if somebody puts a video link in the description that goes against what you're saying. I get them not keeping it up. Just part of the game. I might have some moxie. If it's not insulting, I would put it up too, and leave it up and put another video out. I don't know. Yeah. So whatever. Anyway, let's get to the news of the day, and that's Professor Darby Orcutt here. So, Professor, I'll let you tell the folks your credentials and what you do, because, like I was saying earlier before the show, he has more titles than the King of England. So,
well, thank you, Steve. I'm Darby Orcutt. I'm on faculty at North Carolina State University, where I am a librarian and a teaching professor and a research professor. So my primary appointment is to the NCSU libraries as assistant head for collections and research strategy. And what I do in that role, which is something that's very different than what people think of when they think of an academic librarian, is that my primary work has been for many, many years in putting together and supporting interdisciplinary research teams to address really thorny real-world issues. So the types of things that require bringing together specialists in diverse disciplines in order to solve problems and to generate knowledge. I also I teach in the Science, Technology, and Society program, as well as, as you mentioned, I have a whole list of affiliate and other faculty roles, including with the Genetic Engineering and Society Center.
Does somebody have a fan on in the background at all? Ceiling fan or anything?
Got a fan in the other room. I'll go turn it off. Make sure that.
Hang on a second. No, actually, it's background on the professor's.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Must be a really good microphone. Or it could be the fan on the computer kicking on.
It could be just a bad connection, because there's nothing running on this end.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds
okay.
Okay.
It sounds like somebody says it sounds like a computer fan. So
yeah, I bet that's what it is.
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, I'm glad that's working.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
You might have to move either closer to the mic or a little, because people are saying they're hearing you. There.
I can pop out and pop back in. That might be it. It may be just a bad connection.
If you want to try that, that would be wonderful. I'll give it a shot.
I will do it.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be a great conversation about how the study came about, and so now we're waiting.
I have the fan going on a restroom across the hall, but that's kind of like the exhaust fan, and when people smoke tobacco in here, it kind of pulls the smoke out. I don't know who would
among other things in that bathroom. So folks, let's see, hopefully.
Right. Welcome
All
back.
right. Hopefully that's a little bit better.
Okay.
I'm not hearing that as much now.
Okay. I tested the microphone on this end, and I wasn't picking up. I'm not picking up any background noise, so I don't know what it is.
I think you're good on over here, but I can't hear anything hardly anyway out of these headphones. But
Yep.
to me, it sounds great.
Yeah, Grasshopper says it's not the professor, it is, because we go, hang on.
Oh, heard it while he was gone too.
So what the heck is going on now?
I don't know, but I'm gonna go in there and turn that fan off. I'll be right back.
Well, it just stopped.
Who knows? That's weird. Yeah, we've been having, no, it's not either one of us, it's StreamYard. StreamYard has been having very bad issues with the sound, but apparently it stopped, so.
Well, we can't turn them off.
It's back on. I hear it again anyway. I don't know.
This is just wonderful. It's normally, every week, like they change the audio settings or do something, and we just pop in expecting everything to be hunky dory.
We worked fine for weeks with my soundboard, and they did something, and now I had to disconnect the soundboard because it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, let's get back to the hot topic now. I'm sorry, folks.
Let's not get frustrated. It's okay.
No.
Moving forward.
Moving forward. So, why don't you give us a little bit of background as far as your interest in the subject and how you got this project rolling? Because it's really fun. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've essentially I got into several years ago. I got into looking at strange topics, and you know, this is a strange topic in the world. But I got into looking at strange topics through the lens of trying to teach how science works. How science works, not just in terms of how it says it works and the protocols of science, but how science works within institutions and within cultures. And I came to looking at the questions of these various strange topics that are studied through a scientific lens by some, but that are generally regarded as outside of the mainstream of science. And I was very interested in this because it tells us a lot about how science works when you reflect on it from these sort of outsider perspectives. So that was how I came to start looking into some of these areas, and certainly the Sasquatch phenomenon was one of these. And I spent a few years exploring, reading, getting out into the field with investigators who were trying to document evidence, seeing what they did, again, it was very interesting, and it raised a lot of questions. I saw too that there was not a lot of conversation happening between those who are interested in or investigating Sasquatch phenomena and with scientists. Certainly, you know, we all are aware of Jeff Meldrum, and that's great what Jeff does, but he's a bit of a rarity. There are not too many of us in academia who are taking these questions even remotely seriously. And so I was really interested, particularly because I had people who were coming to me, field investigators who were coming to me and asking, you know, as I'm asking them about what they do and how they do it, they're coming to me and asking, well, how can we get scientists to take this seriously? How do we get this evidence evaluated? Where do I send DNA? You know, where do I send samples if I find something or when I find something? And it was interesting because particularly on the DNA issue, I found that, you know, I mean, it's great. I mean, you know, if you find prints, yeah, I mean, Jeff Meldrum is, you know, a great person, you know, maybe the greatest person to send those to for evaluation. But I had folks asking me a lot about DNA, and some of them sharing with me, a couple sharing with me actual lab reports that they'd gotten back when they'd hired commercial labs to do work. And some of those reports, they were really confused by, like, what does this finding mean, or how is this finding come to? And I realized that it was not just a matter of folks who didn't understand DNA analysis. Just, you know, I mean, certainly there was some of that, paying labs to run tests and not really knowing what they were paying for and what sort of responses they could expect. But also I found that a lot of the labs seemed to not be giving the sort of robust information, or perhaps they were actually in one instance particularly, well, a couple of instances, it was very obvious that the labs may not be doing really a robust job of analyzing the samples. Gotcha. Now, when I say this is a really small number of reports that I saw, because it seems to me that very, very few investigators have even sent samples to commercial labs. It's a less expensive proposition now than it was even a few years ago, but you know, there's part of why I wanted to go down this route was because I recognized that there wasn't a place that I could refer people to.
Right.
There wasn't a lab. There wasn't anybody working on this. So I wanted to make sure. I think that's an important piece of doing science, is being connected with the public, being aware of the types of questions that members of the public have, and really making sure that science is a conversation with the public, not just proclamations. Science says this, science says that. So with regard to this, and you know, it's funny because when I saw your slide for this, I said, "Oh boy," because you know, I know that, you know, you want to get people to tune in and everything, and Bigfoot DNA really does it. This is not a Bigfoot DNA study per se. This is a DNA study where we're focusing on the way we phrase it very scientifically is we're focusing on allegedly morphologically anomalous samples.
Right. Yep.
Now, it may be that some of these samples do open our eyes to something that we may eventually call Bigfoot DNA. That's a possibility. But that is something that, you know, we'll see through the process, certainly. Yeah, and I'll also say about the slide, I do appreciate you putting my headshot next to this other one, because it makes me extremely attractive.
Yeah, the guy on the left needs a shave. But you're right, and you know, I did put in the show description that basically I called it Anomalous Specimens study. So people can submit their specimens, and, you know, hey, you got a dog man, you think you have dogman DNA? Send it. You know, chupacabra, send it. Champ, Loch Ness monster, send it. And
Well, I think some of the biggest complaints are the most average common complaint about people that had submitted Bigfoot DNAs. There was the results they got back. Like most of them would say, like contaminated human DNA or human DNA that had been contaminated. And I'm just wondering if that could have been a collection issue, or maybe it could have been an issue with the lab that was testing it.
Either one is certainly possible, as is, maybe it was human DNA that they collected. That's a possibility as well. However, honestly, one of the things I'd like to do is push back a little bit on some of the lore that I find of Bigfooting. And one big piece of that is the idea that there are many DNA analyses that are showing certain results, or that may be showing human results. And one of the things that I did in preparation for this study was to really try to get my hands on as many analyses that had been done as possible, genetic analyses. And I was very surprised to learn that there seemed to be very, very few.
Right.
I mentioned that early on I'd seen some lab reports that people had shared with me. That was like 2 or 3 lab reports.
Right.
I was very surprised to find that as I started trying to dig down and find other analyses, I was having a very difficult time getting to them, and finding in many cases that I would be, it was a friend of a friend story. So I'd be told, my buddy down in Texas has, got this sample and sent it to a lab, and he got back this unknown primate result. And I'd be like, oh, okay, great. Who's your buddy? So then I'd call the buddy, and I call the buddy, and the buddy would say, well, he's misremembering that. That wasn't me. That was my friend in Kentucky. Who's your friend in Kentucky? Oh, well, let me set you up and you can talk to my friend in Kentucky. Okay, great. Call the person in Kentucky. Hey, I heard that you had submitted this result. Oh, no. No, I was telling him about something that I'd seen on TV.
Got into I heard somebody said situation. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that every story ended up that way.
That might go to my buddy for the record.
Sorry, Texas. It's a big state, though. But yeah, but it was very interesting to me, because when I got to things, and oftentimes what I found was that a story that had been reported as, it was genetically analyzed, I found when I finally got to the person that no, there had been no DNA testing done. Rather, it had been looked at microscopically. Maybe a hair had been looked at and said, oh, well, it looks different than these other hairs, or it shares, these particular features that other hairs have been said that are presumed to be or alleged to be Sasquatch share. But very, very little actual DNA analysis. And furthermore, even most of that DNA analysis that was done, nobody had any actual results in terms of sequencing. They had just a report of this is bear.
They've had an analysis, but not DNA.
Well, it may have been a DNA analysis, but I can't look at, but it doesn't have the DNA sequences.
Gotcha.
So I can't look to see, was that analysis done correctly? Was it not? I had one case where an investigator had taken, he found a bundle of hair, and he took part of it and he sent it to one commercial lab, and he took another part of it and sent it to a different commercial lab, and he got back completely different results. One said it was wolf. One said it was human. And his question to me was, how could that be? And
I think I know.
Well, you probably know one of the reasons. There are multiple.
Yeah.
What do you say, Steve?
Dogs come from wolves, so it can easily be,
No, I'm sorry. Did I say that wrong? One said wolf and one said human.
No idea.
Well, obviously, it's a werewolf.
Contamination.
Yeah, obviously.
The what? Yeah,
werewolf.
Obviously it's a werewolf, right? Did they test it at night and the other one tested it during the day?
Was there a full moon? Yeah.
No, but the thing is, I said, well, gee, I mean, obviously one possibility is that it was wolf, and the one lab detected the human contamination and declared it human, and the other one wolf. And one possibility is that one or both labs were just happy to take money and give a result and didn't actually do their due diligence. Another possibility is that both of the labs did a great job and were completely accurate, and what he had collected, thinking it was a bundle of hair of one species, was not. Maybe it was nesting material. Maybe the hair he sent to the one lab was human, and the hair he sent to the other lab was wolf. In this particular case, and in the particular locale, wolf was a very strange result. And so wolf really didn't make sense. But again, without that sequencing data, without knowing how they drew the conclusions that they drew, who knows?
Right. Got a couple of questions in chat. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Steve, your volume is a little low, bud. Can you
all right,
turn it up
something just happened with the mic. Hang on.
Yeah, your volume dropped down kind of low. I can still hear you, but I'm really strained with these cheap headphones.
How about now? Check. Can you hear?
That's better. That's better. It's still a little low to me. I don't know how you guys in chat. Can you hear Steve okay?
Okay, how about now?
That's it. You're back. Okay.
All right. Hopefully it's not a hot mic.
Yeah.
Like before. So let's get to question number one from Don Fuller. Darby, would you look at eDNA, say, from a footprint? Could that be checked?
I mean, it could be checked. It's at the present, I will say, it's at this point, that's outside the scope of this study. That may change, but at this point, and this is something that I think a lot of folks don't understand when you get talking about DNA and you hear about all the wonderful advances we're making.
Right.
Is that at this point, what we're doing is we're looking for samples, like part of a species, whatever that, or part of an animal or part of a an organism. So whether that's hair, whether that's bone, tooth, blood, we are going to be also looking at, you hear about these handprints and such. We are actually going to be looking at some of that material.
Very cool.
Because, to see, because while that is probably lipid material, a residue that we have as humans, that skin surface lipids that don't in and of themselves contain DNA. There is the possibility that those residues may actually contain very trace amounts of skin cells. And so skin cells are something that could potentially give us complete DNA of an organism and be able to determine with some likelihood what probably left a particular print.
Gotcha.
Now that's different than eDNA, and the process, the techniques of eDNA are quite different. What we want to do at this point, the goal is to look at samples. Not to go sifting through. There's a lot of work to eDNA. It's a very especially time consuming, but expensive process to do that. And then unless you are certain that you have robust DNA in there, it's a real crapshoot as to what you might find at this stage. And so, but I will say that it's something that the idea of looking at samples from footprints.
Yeah, that would be.
That is something that I've started talking over with the research team, and we've started bouncing around some ideas. So not ready to go there yet, and we may not be, but it's certainly interesting. And one of the things with any research study that's done at a university, you are, when you're bringing together folks, who have different research agendas, different things that they're interested in learning about. And in this case, one of the big things that we as a team, but particularly some of my colleagues, are interested in doing is pushing forward techniques of forensic analysis. And so that's an interesting problem, if you will, to think that, okay, here's a footprint in which you may have DNA, but how do you find it within all of that material?
Right.
How do you find it? How do you interpret it? And especially if it's potentially an unknown species, what exactly are you looking for? And again, that's not to say that. I mean, I think that I know that there are some folks out there who are doing small scale eDNA collection and studies of their own, and I applaud them for it. I think that's a hard row to hoe if you are thinking that, one of the possibilities of things that you might find is an undocumented species. It's not impossible, but that's a more difficult path to go down. And like I say, I know from talking with folks that there are folks who have found, macro samples, not just eDNA, but have found hair, have found things that they find very interesting, that they report having certain features, and that's what we're going to start with looking at.
Now, I got a couple of questions from chat, and guess what, Chris? I figured out how to save the questions.
Okay.
So, first question is: have you ever spoke to Dr. Todd Disotell from Syracuse State?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've met him on Zoom. We've spoken a little bit on Zoom.
Cool. Which leads me to
Todd's still rocking those cool haircuts. He's
some
cool haircuts.
A little grayer than they were a few years, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Well, we're all going a little gray.
Just a little bit. So two more. One is my question, but I'll get to my question last. The next question is: how optimistic are you about this project?
Oh, well, I'm quite optimistic because I have fantastic colleagues. Now, it depends on what you're being optimistic for. I am optimistic that whatever we are given samples of, we will be able to determine what they are.
There we are.
That is my optimism.
You know, and to me, and we talked about that. To me, that's awesome because you can put something to rest.
Well, you know,
one way or the other.
Perhaps. I mean, you know, certainly in the case of the samples that we study, absolutely. Now, when you go to, you know, of course, what the things that, excuse me, the things that are, you know, beyond my control are, you know, what samples are provided to the study, offered to the study. Yep. You know, if what people provide is this, it's going to be that, because that's what it is. Right. So you know, this is why, you know, the idea is that there are any number of things that we could learn. I think in some cases there are these hairs that, again, reportedly have these different features that don't seem to match known creatures, is how they're reported to me. I haven't looked at them yet. What is going on there? It's a great question. That's an interesting question. I can't tell you at this point. I can't even, I mean, I can guess, obviously, at what the possible range of conclusions might be around that. We do know that there are hairs that, you know, even on the human body, that look different from one another depending on what part of the body they're on. And so that certainly could very well be the case for various known species. We may discover something interesting, that these hairs that appear to have these features that nobody knows what they are, but they share these features. Maybe those are a type of hair from a known species that we just weren't aware of, of those features, that they could exist in that hair. That would be a really interesting finding. And hey, that's the, you know, so am I optimistic we'll find something interesting? Yes, I'm optimistic. Now, I think, of course, the big reason that, you know, you've got Bigfoot DNA splashed over there and everything, and probably most people are here, is that I think folks are really curious whether there is an unknown species underlying the Sasquatch phenomenon. And again, what we can do in the study is look at the samples that are offered to us. Yep. So obviously you could say, well, we could find that all the samples that are offered to us may be known species. Perhaps, depending on how many samples we've looked at and so on and so forth, at some point that becomes an argument that, well, maybe the idea that Bigfoot is out there is less likely. But the flip side of that is, you know, it really only takes perhaps one sample coming into the study of a Bigfoot, if it exists, that
just need that one sample. You know. Just that one, you know, and
so, you know, and you know, if you're asking me my optimism for discovering Bigfoot through this study, I will say that I'm quite optimistic. In fact, I'm very optimistic that if Bigfoot exists and if we are given a sample of Bigfoot, yes, we will find it. So how's that?
Good answer.
So here's I have 3 questions queued up. And by the way, Chris, if you go to your panel and star a question, put the little star, it goes into the starred tab, and then you can recall them. That's something new. So that is something new. There you go.
I did it.
So there you go.
I don't know if that was a question from Joe or not.
That wasn't. I just blipped it out.
Okay.
So three. I got two questions and one statement, which maybe Darby can answer a little better than I could. First question is an eDNA question. Would the remains of an eggshell of an eaten hard-boiled egg be a good candidate to see what ate the egg? Well, I guess it would depend if it peeled it.
Well, it would depend on a number of factors, and I think that probably the biggest one would be how freshly collected that sample were, because I would, and again, I'm just guessing here. This is the type of question. I mean, any question like this, and in fact, with any sample it's offered, I take it to the team. There's a reason there's a team. There's a lot of expertise across the folks. And so, but I mean, I would think that in the case of an eggshell, probably either, again, skin surface lipids, if there's something leaving those through handling it, or saliva, if there's something, licking or eating out of that. But my guess is that would be, certainly any sample, the fresher it is, would be better.
Sure.
And in that case, if there's saliva there, that's not really an eDNA test. That's
a specimen test.
Yeah. That's a specimen test. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if they put the whole egg that was unpeeled in his mouth and then spit out the shell, I mean, that would be awesome. I'd want to witness that,
I'm not, if you are, I guess I'm, if you're baiting for samples, I don't think that a hard-boiled egg would be my first choice, because I don't know that would be, a great surface for collecting DNA. But if that's what happened to come, I mean, I think, and that's why we can't anticipate exactly all of the possible types of samples that people might have. So that's part of why we have that initial survey form that you've linked to in the show notes, so that folks can offer what they have, can tell us a little bit about it, and and we'll figure out from there.
Hey, hello to our good friend Alex Petikoff. He's watching from North Dakota on the road. On the road. Okay, a couple of more questions in chat. So this question comes from Matt from Central Florida. Bigfoot, where are we at in the sampling process? In other words, do we have enough samples, or are we still looking for more, or do we have any?
Well, the online form just launched on Thursday, so I know there have been a few folks who have filled it out already, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, there's the idea with this. This is an exploratory study, of course. I don't know how long this will be going on, but we're not anxious to end it. We're just beginning it. So certainly, I think if you have a sample that you'd like to offer for testing, please go in and fill that out as quick as you can.
The link will be in the description below to go to the form, and we're going to be talking about just very briefly the form, nothing in depth about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you go to SquatchDTV.com, click on the link there, go to the YouTube channel, and read the description, because all the links are below.
Right under there.
And then beyond that, I mean, it's we'll see. We're going to obviously have to look at prioritizing. Which samples are we ready to test first, and then so I mean, I don't want anybody to be upset if it takes a little while to get
Yeah, you're just getting the wheels going here, you know.
Yeah, we're not looking at this as you know, there's no personal things here or anything like that. We just, you know, we have a certain amount of bandwidth to look at things, and we certainly want to move to the top of that list, the things that that we think are going to be the most potentially interesting in terms of the results. And so that's, you know, like I say, the part of what is important in doing any DNA analysis is having samples that have not, you know, to the best extent possible, have not degraded. And so how things were collected, how they were stored, the environment in which they were found, how quickly they were found, how recently they were found. I mean, all of these things weigh into that.
Now, my next question in there is more of a statement that Joe made over at Bigfoot Atheist Inquiry, saying maybe I'm not as smart as I think or others may think, but I never understood the whole unknown primate result, or excuse whatever, when it comes to hair comparisons.
Me too, Joe.
And there is a way, I believe, that differentiates a primate hair versus, say, bear or ungulate or canine. And maybe Darby can explain that a little bit better than I could, but there is a way of determining that just on observation and throwing it under a microscope, is there not?
Oh, certainly. But, you know, certainly it's not, you know, one of the things that I've discovered in the last few years too, is that the art of hair analysis is in many ways a lost art. There are very few people who can really actually put hairs of common North American mammals under the microscope and really tell you a lot about them with certainty.
And mind you, Joe, that those are not DNA results where you're hearing that from.
Actually, they are.
Oh, are they really?
Now let me explain them. Well, I will say this. I will say that yes, I have seen unknown primate, if you will, as a DNA result, but that does not mean an unknown species of primate.
Gotcha.
What unknown primate means, as it's been, and it's not a result in essence that the lab would give you, but it's the way that it's oftentimes talked about in media. You know, gotcha. It's unknown primate. What that means as a DNA result is that the sample was degraded and there was enough DNA to be able to tell, okay, it's in the primate family, but we can't differentiate the result from there.
Right.
They got a partial.
So, in other words, and so an unknown primate could mean you had human DNA. It could mean you had chimpanzee DNA. It could mean you had an unknown primate, like an unknown species of primate DNA. It's possible.
We just don't know.
But we don't know. And that's the point, is that the sample itself did not yield a result beyond being able to say, okay, yeah, this is a primate. This isn't a bear, or this isn't a cow. Now, the interesting thing I mentioned about, you know, there's a lot of lore, it seems, in the Bigfoot community around this, is that I had heard a number of these stories of folks saying, oh, I sent this into the lab and I got back this result of unknown primate. Every single one of those stories that I have traced back to its source have ended up with either, you know, not finding anybody who, you know, everybody said, you know, either it ended, like the trail ended, like I got to the last person in the telephone chain and they said, I never told anybody that I did DNA analysis because I never did one, you know, Or, and this was interesting to me, in several instances, this is where it came back to, oh, I was telling my friend that the hair I looked like one that I guess there was an episode of Monster Quest where they got a result of unknown primate because the sample was degraded. And I discussed that finding with Doug Hychek, the producer of Monster Quest, a couple of years ago. And that was his sense from the lab was that, it was too degraded. They couldn't make an identification. It was, I think that language of unknown primate, again, it's an unfortunate language when it's made in a TV show or something because it evokes an image that is just not.
It's Bigfoot. It's Bigfoot.
Well, and that's a reality too. That I think that there are not many samples that have truly been submitted, and I don't think it's because of the a lack of samples available. I think there are some hard-hitting researchers out there that are putting boots on the ground and finding stuff.
I think that little dissertation I am going to slice from this podcast and put it out as a single uploaded video, because that is really what we're about here, is about getting to the truth. And that's two more questions. So you got another first is I'm going to go with Alex's question, because I think Mike's question, I got your question, but it's going to elicit a little longer response. So let me, I don't know if Alex Petikoff from Small Town Monsters asked, has Darby spoken to Cindy Dozen about hair analysis? I don't know if.
Absolutely, Alex. I have. Cindy is, and for those of you unfamiliar with Cindy Dozen, she is a citizen scientist up in Canada. She has. I mentioned that this hair analysis is kind of a lost art. Cindy has trained herself through doing just a lot of looking at hair and a lot of reading of peer-reviewed scientific articles. She has trained herself to analyze hair to a remarkable degree. She's very impressive. She may be, I would say she certainly is probably one of the top handful in North America of hair analysis experts. She's self-taught in that area, but it is an expertise nonetheless. Cindy has failed to identify as known species only a handful of hairs, and the hairs that she cannot attribute to a known species share similar features.
Interesting.
And exactly interesting.
Yeah.
So those hairs, and I know that some of those hairs are coming into the study.
See, there's hope out there, people. There's hope out there.
Now, again, now I say this, and I say, now there are other, there are other experts in that analysis, and I've heard, while Cindy feels very strongly that these features that are shared by these unknown hairs, I think she truly believes that they indicate Sasquatch, and they may. But I know other hair experts who don't share that opinion. So, hey, that's why we need to test them and see what they are.
So, your hour is gone, but if you want to keep going, we'll keep going.
I'm happy to keep going for a little bit. I also aware I know you have another guest, and I don't want you to give
Dave is the standby. He can come on as well. We can throw him on if he's got questions. So, Dave, if you want to come on, we'll pop you in the chat too. Add you to the show.
Yeah, I did.
So-
Well, let me add to that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let me add one other thing. Speaking of experts in that sort of analysis, one other person that I did track down is Dr. Henner Fehrenbach.
Oh, Dr. Wolfgang Fehrenbach. Yep.
And some of you may remember him from, well, he appeared in the first Legend Meets Science movie way back when.
He was on this program when we were on a radio show. I think we had him on in 2007.
Yeah. And that was probably, and he had, he'd moved a couple of times and everyone had lost track with him. And everybody in the Bigfoot community that I talked to told me that he had to be dead. Yet I found him.
And probably just as happy to talk about it.
He's been very happy to talk about it. He calls me up every once in a while and says, "Is it going yet? Is it going?" So I emailed him the day that we launched. I emailed him to let him know that it was the survey was out there. We're actually rolling along. But yeah, he's been retired for. I think he retired in 1999, actually.
Wow.
But he's, but it was wonderful because I got to talk with, Alex asked, I spoke with Cindy at length about the hair analysis that she'd done. I got to speak with Dr. Fehrenbach about the hair analysis that he'd done. He's probably looked at more alleged Bigfoot samples than anyone under the microscope. But again, it's been a long time, but it was interesting to hear his thoughts as well.
And welcome to Dave Wilbanks coming on the show tonight. Hey, Dave.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing very well.
Ben.
Nice to meet you,
Darby. Steve, Chris. Yeah, nice to meet you, Darby. Interesting podcast. I've been sitting here backstage watching you guys.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating stuff. I mean, I'm learning a ton here, so hopefully the audience is getting a lot too. Mike from Tactical Bigfoot Research has a question, and then Darby, I got my list of questions, only a few short ones.
Okay.
And a funny little story to go with it. But Mike says, Darby, how do you want everything prepped before shipping and during shipping to you?
Great question, Mike. Don't worry about that right now. Well, we try to keep this as low bar and incremental as possible. So once you fill out the online form for each sample that you have to offer, give us all that information. What the process will be, I'll be following that up with again, we have to prioritize at every stage, but I'll be following that up with asking to do a quick interview with each person who's offering something, and then to learn a little bit more and ask some more probing questions. At the point that we determine that yes, we would like to see that, then that's when you'll get the instructions for how to pack it, how to prep it, how to send it, where to send it to, all that. In the meantime, I will say, Mike has himself has done some great work with setting out for the community. I know some protocols for collecting potential evidence. So I would say, look at Mike, look at your own protocols. But, for those who are listening, I think definitely the biggest things are, if you have the option at this point, when you collect a sample, try to do it using sterile gloves or tweezers or something like that. Store it in paper envelope, preferably acid-free paper, not a plastic bag.
Nope.
Samples do not fare well when they're sealed in a Ziploc, although that is most people's tendency to think about how to store it. If you can pop it in the refrigerator or the freezer, great. But the instructions and shipping and all that will come at the time that we're ready for it.
Yeah, and I'll answer Blue Ridge's. Yeah, he asked if you've been to Uwharrie National Forest. Obviously, you're not a field researcher; you're a scientist. So we can. So somebody asked, help me ask how.
I actually have been to Uwharrie.
Oh, there we are,
right down the street from me. Like I said, I've spent some time in the field, shadowing folks. I try to look at the habitats that people are reporting finding these things from when I can. No, I'm not a field researcher in the sense that many people are, where they're out in the woods all the time and all. It's great to be out in the woods, so I try to get out there as much as I can, just for fun, if nothing else. But yeah, I've been down to Uwharrie. I haven't seen anything there that but I've heard some interesting stories out of there.
And Hilton asked, why does it cost so much and take so long?
Well, it doesn't cost so much, this study. Right. Because I mean, I think you've shared in the show notes, if folks do want to contribute to the university specifically for the work that I do, welcome that. Absolutely welcome that. That will give us opportunities that we wouldn't otherwise have. But we are doing this study regardless. We're not charging people to test things. Yeah, it may take a while. I'll tell you that right now. Science is not necessarily fast. It has, from the time that I conceived of this study till now, when we've launched the survey, has been years. It took me that time to bring together the right team, to make sure that everybody was ready to do the work. We didn't want to collect samples, and then not be able to look at the first one until a year later. No, we didn't want to do that. I've had people who have, been offering me samples for years, and I've said, look, I don't want to take it, because I also don't want to be that person. I've heard stories, and I've actually confirmed a couple of these stories of faculty elsewhere who have taken samples and never gotten back to people and never given them results. And this is an official, actual study. I've done the paperwork. I've submitted the forms. We are set up to receive these things. Anybody who submits a sample will receive results, period.
Good to see you, Chance.
I'm not going to say when, but you will receive results.
Right. And you know what? Science is pragmatic. So is any type of investigation. You don't want to rush any step of it, any part of the way, because when you do, that's when mistakes happen. And Dave, when I'm done with my questions, if you have questions for the doctor, you're up next. So, if not, that's okay.
I would like to ask some question about the sampling.
Go right ahead, Chris.
What would be, of course, I know you're probably thinking of hair samples and things of that nature, but what would be the chances? Would it be better if you could obtain something like a saliva sample or a blood sample? Would those samples be tested too?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. I speak a lot in terms of hair because that's what the majority of people have said that they have to offer. I mentioned that we are going to be looking at some of the sebum or skin surface lipid samples or apparent sebum or skin surface lipid samples, because I know that those are being offered. At this stage, I don't know of anything else that somebody has told me, yeah, I'm gonna offer this to you. But I will say, yes, we are taking any any kind of sample. So yeah, if somebody has bone or tooth, in fact, this is worth saying, is that I have, in addition to the team that's already on the project, I have a long list of experts who are research scientists in other various areas who are actually ready to jump on board with the project if and when we get the type of sample that's in their area of expertise. So I have someone who is just an amazing, one of the top tooth and bone experts, who is ready to, ready to look at that sample if we get an interesting sample of tooth or bone, and so on for a whole list of other areas. These are folks who are, we'll say, closeted in terms of anything.
So, let me just say this caveat: we have a skeptic in the audience, and that's fine. Guys, go easy on him. I will address his questions very, very soon when we're done with the professor, and I will address those questions. And Dave is more than willing, and Chris would be more than willing to throw their 2 cents into some of his questions, and Darby as well, if he wants to stick into it, because Darby's raising his hand.
But let me to finish your question, though, Chris, too. The other thing that's interesting, you'll actually see on the form, and when I did the first draft of the form and shared it with my team, they laughed at first, and they said, "Oh, that's smart," because one of the things you can check off that you can offer to us is a whole body.
Right.
And the reason I did that is, one, like say, with a university study, you go through a lot of paperwork. You go through an institutional review board process, an ethics review to make sure that you're doing everything above board and all this, and so on and so forth. And I was doing this anyway. Why wouldn't I take a body if we're offered? And my colleagues laughed because, of course, we don't expect anybody, but we are set up. We are at this point the only place that I know of that would be able to take a body without having to start all that paperwork from scratch.
If someone sent in a complete body, I'm sure all the experts would start coming out of the woodwork then. Okay, let's go. Here we are.
But but that's the thing, is that, as I talk about the team, and we're unless or until scientists hang out that shingle and say, yeah, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
Because I do have people who've asked, oh, well, if I hit one with a car, what do I do with the body? And they think they all think, oh, I'll do this or I'll do that, and so I said, well, I'll make it easy for folks. We'll have a path for that. Again, not expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
But hey, if it does, that would be absolutely delightful.
So
I'm sure everybody, both the Bigfoot enthusiasts to the most hardcore skeptics, would agree that would be delightful.
Yep. Now, Pat Finn, who has joined our chat today, obviously is a skeptic, and he started asking, where are the dead Bigfoot bodies? So my answer to that, if anybody has anything different, is, and I'm going to also throw in this one that he says bones can last for years. Let me throw in a couple of things. Number one, nature has a great disposal system. There is a prevalent theory amongst some certain Bigfoot researchers that Bigfoot may bury their dead. But if they buried their dead, we would be finding their bones. And the issue with that is that, yeah, bones can last for years, but very rarely. The Body Farm put a deer out in the Body Farm in Tennessee, put a deer out, and within 14 days, you couldn't even tell it was there. That's because you have animals like porcupines and raccoons and even coyotes, wolves, bear will eat bone, and especially the dogs will eat bone, especially when they're low in calcium. They need calcium. They'll actually go after those bones. So you have a lot of scavengers and predators out there that will eat bone. I watched a black bear devour an entire chicken right in its chicken from the market, whole chicken, boom, right in its mouth, and all it did was go crunch, 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 swallow the whole thing. Didn't leave the bones, didn't spit out the bones. It chewed it right up and digested it. So that now, why aren't we able to find them? Well, and he says it can be done. Well, very simply is that, number one, it's hard to find any animal in the woods because you're walking and it hears you and it goes the other way. However, when you're dealing with a Sasquatch, you are likely dealing with a primate. So now you're also thinking with something that has a very large brain capacity, that has abstract thought and forward thinking and pre-planning. So it's not your average bear, that's for sure. You may stumble across a bear, you may stumble across a deer, you may stumble across another varmint in the woods, but they don't have the brain capacity of a Sasquatch. And people, yes, do actually run into them, hence sighting reports. So that's what I got to say about that. If anybody has anything to jump in on any of those points, go right ahead.
Well, I'm total agreement.
Well, another thing.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
If you want to jump in, go ahead. I wrote down what I was going to say.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that. So
okay. Anyway, what?
We got a delay.
Yeah, we got a delay. We got a delay. So, Dave, you go first.
Okay. Well, another thing I would add, Steve, what you say, other than just the rarity of finding animals like this is probably a very rare animal on top of that.
Agreed.
So when you add the rarity into the equation, you take away that. And plus, whatever this thing turns out to be, we know it's got to be pretty smart because it's avoided us for a very long time. I wouldn't even discredit the possibility that they may even dispose of their dead.
Right. And now Pat,
I don't know how long the delay is.
Yeah. Now Pat's arguing not 100% of the bones. Yes, 100% of the bones. Yeah. At the Body Farm, 100%. Every last little bit, and whatever's left had been scattered about and left in fragments.
And the reasons we have the specimens that were type specimens for Gigantopithecus blackie, they consist of some jaw teeth and a small sections of jaw bone.
That's right. A couple of mandibles and some teeth.
Right. Those were found in caves, and it wasn't because the animal went there when it died. It was because porcupines had carried the bones to the caves to where they eat them. They consume the bones. The problem was that the porcupines could not consume the teeth because they were harder than bone. And therefore, that's why the teeth were left over. Right. And that's why we have Gigantopithecus, on record as it did exist. But everything else, Mr. Porcupine can sure enough, they love to chew up bone.
Or raccoons or, whatever.
True.
Yeah. So, getting back to our topic.
Well, let me jump in here,
sure.
Steve. Because, I think Pat raises a really great question, and it's a really troubling question if for those who report having their own experiences. I think that when in my course, I had a Sasquatch investigator once who was asked this question by one of my students, and I thought gave a fantastic answer. He looked at the student. He said, "That's a great question." He says, "I have no idea, but I have to reconcile that I've I've seen Sasquatch, and I know what I saw, and you know, I have to reconcile that with I can't even imagine. You know, I mean, again, people can come up with all of these scenarios that are possible, and it's hard because you're arguing you're arguing a probability, because again, that's a tough question. If this is, you know, if this is an extant species, why nothing? That's a tough question. But on the other hand, you know, that's a question of probability. But on the other hand, if, you know, if at some point an undiscovered species does come to light, well, then any or all of these possibilities that y'all have thrown out must be the case. Again, we're dealing, but what's interesting to me about the entire Sasquatch phenomenon is not, and you know, and honestly, I mean, you can tell I don't know what I think about it. You know, the reason that I am curious about it is because when I look at all of the particularly all of the reports of things and the you know, what little particularly trace evidence there is, there's not enough to convince me of a particular reality of what underlies the phenomenon, but I don't find any of the typical answers to that question fully satisfying. And I think we're having this, you know, we have these conversations go on in the Bigfoot community and the skeptical community and so on and so forth in an environment where we have a lack of data. And part of why, you know, I mean, really a lot of what motivated me to do this study is the fact that part of that lack of data is because some of these things that could contribute to that data set haven't been examined, so that we haven't produced that data. So in one sense, I mean, for a skeptic, you know, for someone who's a real hardcore skeptic on this, I mean, yeah, this study could represent the opportunity for, I don't know, I think as someone in the Bigfoot community might say, you know, to put up or shut up, you know, that they, you know, if there are, if there, you know, if people are finding samples and specimens and everything else, this is the opportunity to have them looked at by a research team that's going to figure out what this is. I mean, it's part of why I have the team that I have is not because, you know, not because there's an expectation of finding an unknown species, but there is a commitment to let's figure out what this is. And that's what forensic work really is. I mean, you know, it's all well and good to think what you think about something, but when you've got a sample, that sample is evidence of something, and we need to figure out what it is.
So just to sharpen up, Chance Lambert said, I have squirrels in my yard that actually gnaw on my cow skulls to keep their teeth sharpened. So there is yet another way of how bones disappear. And I have another one from Alex, who's like, gorillas and chimps barely exist in the fossil record because of where they live. And maybe that, you know, maybe that has something to do with our bones. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about this show. But we're not afraid to admit if we don't know something. If we don't know it, we say, I don't know. Yeah. And where are the Bigfoot bodies? I don't know.
Don't know.
But I think, I can tell you what I think.
Right.
I think that they're probably disposed of by nature pretty quickly, barring some sort of burial ritualistic thing that we know nothing about. You know, that's just, we're reaching out there again, searching for something possibility, and the reality is we don't know.
Yep. And the big problem in the Northeast, so many porcupines, Chewy nose. LOL. Poor Chewy.
Well,
poor
that's
Chewy.
just what happened to the Gigantopithecus stuff. Porcupines eat them up.
Yeah, well, it's just to me, it's like people want to throw, but it took us only 100,000 years to prove that a Gigantopithecus, showed up, and how many new dinosaur fossils do we find every year? It's saying, oh, we have a new type of dinosaur, or we have a new type of animal. It happens every so often. I'm not gonna say every year, but every so often, and that took how many millions of years just to pop up. So, but anyhow, I digress. What I wanted to ask the professor is, there has been, to me, a shift in science over the years, the last 20 years or so, even less, that when this mystery started, it was science that was really giving us the hard time, in media kind of feeding it. Now it's kind of reversed. It's the media does a lot to troll this topic, but at the same time not being particularly accurate amongst some things. I've stated many times that there was the big, confusion that ABC News had reported many years ago that stuck to the wall like, a cow pie. That's Roger Patterson on his deathbed admitted that the film was, fake, and that wasn't true. They got that confused with the Ray Wallace story. And, they were trying to, and so many people say, so for a long time, people were saying, didn't he confess on his deathbed that the film was a fake? No, that never happened. Well, ABC News said it. Well, it's wrong. They got this story and this story confused. And, I immediately wrote to the reporter involved. I think I got an email back that, of course, can't admit a mistake. But science has come a long way now where they're starting to do stuff like, your team is doing. Like, let's take a look at this. That's what science deserves. Science is the exploration of the unknown, and I really embrace that. The one thing I always worry at times is about confirmation bias, because not only can it affect us in the Sasquatch world, but I've seen it affect scientists as well. I had an anthropologist say there's no evidence that says that North America could support a large primate. He said that on my Monster Quest episode. When you sit there and back up and realize that, hey, we're large primates and we're here in North America, and the Aboriginal people that came here survived. So that was just a biased statement. I had another a wildlife biologist from NCON on the same show say, if these things existed, people would be seeing them. Well, if people weren't seeing them, we wouldn't be here, would we? So, it's tough to overcome those biases, but that's why I applaud when science gets involved, like your university has. And just to my question is, what kind of disciplines do you have involved in the study?
Well, on the core team, we have represented genetics, genomics, forensics, and really a top-notch microscopist. So that's the core team, because, like I say, at this point, that's what we're anticipating, that what we're going to be offered are these a particular couple of types of samples, because that's what people have told me they have at this point. And like I said, I've got a long list of folks who are like, yeah, again, they're not going to join, the bone person, the osteo person is not going to join the study. Right. And, because if we don't have bone to look
Bones,
at.
yeah.
So there's a lot of folks who are kind of ready to.
They're on standby,
when they can contribute their expertise.
And obviously, it depends on what you find. If you find something that's pretty like, what's this? This is a little out of the ordinary. Then you got to call in the standbys to kind of cross check and verify and dig deeper, per se, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I just want to show this slide real quick too while we're here. Is the there is an intake form on the link provided below, and this is just one quick mishmash of a couple of screen captures explaining what the intake is. It should be small enough that, well, there's the information of the study. I made sure your information was taken out of that just for the show purpose. But what I like is that you actually ask a person that you would like to be credited by name for providing my specific sample to the project. You'd like to be credited by name with participating in the study generally, but without any connections to any sample. Please keep my involvement confidential and no item to contribute my sample to the study where you have a declination. I think that's awesome. It's not an NDA. It's like, hey, you're going to credit people. Hey, this was given to us by blah, blah, blah. So, and it's going to take some moxie because a lot of people might be afraid to say, well, what if it's a bear? What if it's a horse? Maybe I don't want my name associated with this.
Right.
I don't want to look like an idiot, but
yeah, no. And I mean, that's, I wanted to recognize that, people have different interests. Now, in any case, anybody who submits a sample will get results. Regardless of what they choose, and I'll say too, I mean, if you, it says somewhere in there too, if you change your mind, obviously you can't change your mind after we've publicly shared your name, but, if you change your mind a little bit later on, it's still time to change that. No problem. But yeah, I mean, because I recognize people are coming from different places and some people, wow. I mean, they want to be able to, show the world what their sample was, and there it is right there, and it'll be there. And some people, they're really curious. They want to know for themselves, but they don't want to have any part of it. And, in terms of, public.
So Dave, any questions for the doctor before we let him go tonight?
I will add to that as well. One of the things we do ask for specific locations where things were found, but we are not going to be disclosing those, period, no matter what. I'm not giving the GPS coordinates to somebody's backyard so that, or anything like that. We are not we may disclose locations in very general terms, but we are not. We're not disclosing locations, period.
Awesome. And Daniel Weeks just contributed $2 into the kitty, saying everything's bigger in Texas just to beat out Mike. Thank you guys, both of you, Mike and Daniel. And David, go ahead. You got the floor.
Well, you said don't put hair samples in a plastic Ziploc bag.
Yeah, what happens is that the plastic it traps moisture and it actually degrades the samples rather quickly. Okay. So paper is the way to go.
Gotcha. See, when I first started doing this back in the mid '90s, collecting evidence stuff, the thing was back then they said paper, and then all of a sudden you see people putting them in plastic bags. So you're reaffirming that the paper is the way to go on that. So that's helpful if I ever find anything like that anyway. But really, I don't really have anything else. I mean, it's good to see somebody in the science community that's reputable getting involved in this. I'm really excited to see what you come up with.
Oh, now there's a bidding war.
I guess there's still a delay.
There is. Now there's a bidding war. Thank you,
Texas
Mike.
Bigfoot Rangers, $4.99. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Super sticker,
funny.
yeah.
That's funny.
That's the kind of war you want, Steve.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate
we love
it.
you guys.
Definitely offsets the cost of what it costs to put the show on sometimes with all the minutia that goes on with it. Yep. And also, Joe said, yep, make sure it's acid-free paper as well. So Joe's paying attention. He gets the star for paying attention tonight. He gets the little... Oh, Michael, thank you. Jeez.
Mike, you're killing us, man. I don't know what to say.
Except thank you.
Thank you. Yes. An old man told me one time that, son, when somebody gives you money, you take it and you say, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, Michael, next time I make it to Texas,
good rule.
I owe you a nice tall one. So, and we'll definitely enjoy that. And
we'll call 2 or 3.
And we'll call blast in the parking lot again. That funny story about Mike. He was playing. He had this rig, and now I know he's transitioning it to another one. But besides his boat, and I don't know, Dave, if you've ever met Mike Waldy, he has this boat that he goes up and down the bogs. Yeah. And that, thank you, Jay.
Nice,
and he's got this rigged up with like 4 different FLIRs and a panel where he can go down the waterways and see the shorelines at night.
Oh, wow.
It's really, and then his truck is set for lighting, FLIR, call blasting. And so he was like flipping the switch on call. He had a remote, and every time somebody would walk by it, he'd let out a Sasquatch howl. What? Everybody be like hitting the floor. It was quite hysterical. And then of course Craig yelled at us. But everybody knows me. I'm always in for a good time sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But Darby, again, why don't you throw out your easy websites out there, the ones that are easy. I know the form is a long, complicated one, but your websites out there so the folks at home can.
Absolutely. If I can figure out how to do that.
Everybody grab a pen and paper.
Woo. Can I put that in the chat? How do I do that?
Just copy and paste it into the chat. I believe that'll work.
I don't see a box to contribute to the chat. Okay. Doing something wrong.
Oh, you may not as a guest. You may not.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I did buy a web domain to make it easy for folks. It's DarbyOrcutt.com. That's DARBYORCUTT.com. And so that's a lot easier to remember than my university one, which goes on and on. Yeah. And you've got the show notes. You've got the form linked in the show notes.
Yep.
And
the link will be in the description below. So make sure, guys, if you're listening on the podcast, go to SquatchDTV.com, click the link, go to the YouTube channel, check out the description below. DarbyOrcutt.com.
Or, folks, if you want to go to another way, too, is to get all the videos in a nice way. So you can go to Squatchdetective.tv. It goes to a website, and that all generates. There's a mailing list there. So if you're not getting your notifications or you want to get notifications via email, you can sign up there, and boom, that's all free of charge and all works. And the emails work very, very well. When you schedule a show, boom, the notification goes out that the show has been scheduled. So. But Professor, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. And, it's good to see some people with some open minds coming into this and trying to round up, like I say, this multi-dimensional team trying to get at some of these mysteries that are out there, be it a Sasquatch or whatever. Not just Sasquatch, but if somebody's got a chupacabra hair, they can send the mangy dog hair into the but
yeah, I mean that's the point of the study is not only to look at alleged Bigfoot samples, but to look at any samples that are just weird. I think a lot of times people are find strange things, and a lot of them say, oh well, I don't know what it is, so it must be Sasquatch. Well, if you don't know what it is, you just don't know what it is, and let's let's see if we can't figure that out. And especially if there are things that there are some of these that stump the experts. The nice thing about doing this sort of analysis is that unless the sample is just degraded to the point that we can't do it, you can't stump the level of analysis that we'll be doing.
Yep, motion sensors that beep inside when you're sleeping too. Well, Professor. I'm sorry, I have a tendency to call all professors Doc. But again, we appreciate you coming on. Good luck with anything. If there's anything I could do or we can do, just give us a holler. We're glad to get the word out for you.
Please do.
We're definitely excited. Like I said, I may have a sample coming to you real soon. I just got to get my hands on it in July. So again, I'll let you get off so you can prepare for school tomorrow. Yes. Especially after a 4-day week this week. So
thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc.
Thanks for being on with us. We really appreciate having you. It's been an honor.
Nice meeting you, Darby.
Okay, let's go back to where.
What a great guy. What a great guy.
So let's get this back up. So, David, what is new with you, my brother?
Well, I was going to go live tonight out in the woods, but your show sounded more interesting than what I had in mind, so I stayed home and watched you and Chris.
It definitely was a learning experience. And really, I learned a bunch of stuff and a lot of and it was kind of funny. I was talking about the DNA and the hair. I was talking about samples that were just microscoped over years. Like there is a Chinese Yeren hair allegedly that actually Paul Bartholomew has that Dr. Warren Cook got when he went over to China to talk to their scientists about the Yeren. And he came back with a hair sample, and this is all written in Chinese with a university, I suppose, that they had analyzed the hair and said it was an unknown type of primate, but it was microscoped. It wasn't DNA tested. So, and I know this was some of the hairs that Dr. Fehrenbach had found previously. They were never DNA tested. They were just microscoped. And I said, well, they're primate, but they don't have any likeness to any other primate we know. But I don't know. Mike Waldy says, David, I lived in Tishomingo, south of you. So that's.
Really?
You guys should hook up. You guys would be a scream.
Yeah, if you're ever in Ada, stop by my music shop there on Main Street, Dave's Music Store. Be glad to visit with you.
Yep, and Pat, have a good night. I know you're a skeptic, but
that's me.
But we gladly. I have no hard feelings. If you're a skeptic, please be a skeptic.
Yeah,
please be a
skeptic too. We're skeptical too. It's fine. Not about Bigfoot.
I tell you what, healthy skepticism is a lot better than the other side we're seeing a lot today.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's interesting. Mike just said some are under the scope with Paul's permission. So, and that wouldn't have to do something with Mr. Hijack, would it? Just questioning that, or would it be going there? I don't know. Who knows? It may be going to Darby. That would be really cool. So here's these hairs I've seen for the last 20 years that may eventually get sent for DNA testing.
Yeah, with the newer techniques being developed, maybe they can like crunch some of those up and get some DNA from it. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, Mick. Should we assume that the Yeren is the same genus as the North American Sasquatch? I'm not so sure. Well, here's the interesting thing. I kind of look at the probability of things. And if we are trying to say that there's one undiscovered species of primate running around here in North America, and allegedly, if we look at where all the other creatures of the world came from, they came from the land bridge, or when it was Pangea. So it came over from Asia, Africa to Asia, and into North America, down to South America. You know, I would think it's safe to say that they are the same. They may have some size differences. They may have some hair coloration differences, length. And they may have some ecological, evolutionary adaptations. But their tracks are very similar to the North American Sasquatch, if that's what you want to call it. I'd say the chances are that it's probably the same cat we're looking for. So Blue Ridge asked, are Oriental people the same as Caucasian people? Yes,
but
they're all Homo sapiens. Yep. Their DNA is no different than,
and then some.
Yeah, it's no different. And what defines it is they may have a series of markers in them that may define how they look, what color their hair is, that is common to their dominant genes. So, no, not the Mick. You may be confusing the Yeren with the orangutan, which is a little smaller, kind of hobbit almost looking. The orangutan is that, but the Yeren, from what I understand, is very typical, same size as our guy, maybe a little bit, maybe a foot smaller, but they're big too. The Yerens, along with the Yowies as well. The Yowies also are alleged to be large, and which is very different from the skunk ape, which tends to be a little smaller scale of what we're seeing the rest of.
That's the nice thing about the Bigfoot mystery. You know, it crosses cultures, even cultures that were not connected and had no communication. Like these people living in Tibet, you know, describe a hairy man beast, and then the people in North America describe a hairy man beast.
No, I Grasshopper's on to something very similar. I don't think there are many types of Bigfoot as there are other primates. Okay, so you're saying that they may have the same DNA, kind of like us. We, yep, exactly, Chuck. You know, our good friend Chuck. Happy birthday, Chuck, by the way. They may have different races, you know, and that's possible too. Very possible.
They have different colors.
Steve, even.
Go ahead, Dave.
But you know, you mentioned Homo sapien. I mean, we are not pure Homo sapien necessarily. I mean, we are part Neanderthal. Some of us are, like in Asian and Caucasian, have a Neanderthal mixed in. Denisovan may be in there somewhere. So we're finding out a lot about ourselves as time goes on. You know, and as far as you mentioned earlier, the land bridge, I think he was meaning the Ice Age. Pangea was like 200 million years ago.
Right, but when Pangea, with everything was crystal. Yeah, true.
But you're talking. Yeah, that was. I'm kind of an amateur paleontologist, so it's kind of, I like to mess with stuff like that. But yeah, if If they did come across, it'd have been about a ice age level.
Yeah.
I've always had a. Go ahead. There's a delay.
Yeah. Joe said race is a made up concept, folks. It kind of is. I mean, we all have the same DNA. Even those that have Neanderthal, we still have the same DNA. The markers are a little bit different in them too when you map them out. But the bottom line is if you look at, we're all the same. We all have the same DNA, just different markers. And that identifies a lot of things like the hybridization with Neanderthal, the different markers for race, the different markers for height, size, dwarfism, all kinds of other things. There's all markers in that DNA code, much more than I can dare to even think. Here's the amazing thing is that dogs have become, their symbiotic relationship to us, the domestic dog, is actually now in their DNA. And they're one of the few creatures, one of the only creatures that when they're born as a puppy, they instinctually will follow a human's pointing. They automatically know to do that. No other animal does that. Wolves don't do it. Chimpanzees don't even do it. So that just goes to show you how DNA can reflect over time. So, and I agree. Chance is talking about, the human, people trying to say that Bigfoot is human. Well, then how do you explain the difference in foot? How do you explain the difference in the hair coverage? It's got to be something that drastic, has to be, especially with foot structure, arm length, foot structure, the size, even the structure. They got to be something other than just pure.
That's a jump to a different species,
right? Especially the foot structure thing. Anyway, well, Dave, I'm glad you could come on. I know we got this horrible delay going on today. But I appreciate you coming on. We're going to kick the show off, but Dave, thanks for coming on. I look forward to being on your show real soon. So,
oh, you bet. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the invite. Good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you too, bud.
So, folks, Chris, do your thing. We're going to take it out.
Well, once again, I want to thank David for being on here with us and Professor Darby Orcutt. You guys remember, if you're listening on the podcast, check out the website and view in the description. It'll have all his links to his website and the DNA study that's going on now. I want to thank everybody in the chat. We appreciate you. Always an honor to have you here and tickled to death to have you. If it's first time listening on YouTube, man, hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share it. We appreciate it. Help get the word out.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah. That's right. We don't spend $5 million to promote anything. So, if it's not by word of mouth, then nobody's going to know. So get it out there.
Again, on behalf of me, thank you, Dave, for coming on tonight. And, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all you guys for donating tonight. That was really very kind of you, and I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And it certainly helps because I'm off to Alabama and via Kentucky. So for those, especially on our membership page, there are going to be a lot of extras on that. There's going to be a lot more videos dropped too on the regular channel.
Oh yeah. We're going to have some fun.
No, you didn't hit the right thing again, Mike. What you got to do is just tab over to the membership page and then click join, and that's how you get to be a member. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think Jay Fritz did the same thing last week. I think he hit the donate button instead. You got to go over to the membership page, and do that. But I appreciate it all, guys. I love you all, of course. And this is the channel. We try to keep it, we try to keep it real, and we try to always adhere. We don't try to. We always adhere to the truth of what's out there. And if we make a mistake, hey, we're more than willing to say, hey, we evaluated this, but actually it turned out to be that now. So that's what we're all
not
about.
Perfect. We're just striving to be.
Yeah. But folks, again, thanks for all your support. It helps greatly. It does my heart good. And that's why it just makes me want to drive more to put the best content out there and the most realistic content. Science, not science fiction. And that's it. So next week, we're going to have a little fun. I'm going to see if I can't do a live feed from the car on the drive down just to say hi to everybody for the members, or maybe even for the general folks don't really. I'll end up getting, 1,000 trollers on there, but yeah, it's going to be fun. Off to the South I go this week. And Chris, I'll see you in a couple of days.
Yeah, buddy.
But okay, folks, have a great week. Like I said, there's more stuff coming out for everybody next week. And we appreciate y'all. Again, David, thank you so much. And folks, on behalf of everybody here, there will be no show next Sunday. I'll be traveling back to New York from Alabama. So maybe via Kentucky again. See if we can.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a show Sunday from here. Maybe.
No, yeah, it's not a bad idea. But unfortunately, I got to get back to work for Tuesday.
Oh,
yeah. I got to do that 4-letter word work thing. But on behalf of everybody here, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Don't even ask me the date. I'm lucky I know next week's Sunday. We'll catch you all here in a couple of weeks. Everybody, keep an eye out for the uploads. Everybody have a great week. God bless. Keep on squatching, folks. We'll see y'all next week.
Hey, folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless. And keep on squatching.